Hi. Hi. I'm gonna call this part 3 teaser. There it is. The long awaited part 3 coming soon. I keep saying tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. Alright. On page 72. Well, y'all have seen it's probably about 5 minutes or so. Let's see how it goes. Maybe the hardware store's panes would have wobbled the moon's reflection interestingly, but there was no way of telling, not with the panes where they were and the moon where it was. C'est la vie. She mooched around the center for a while, getting the feel of the night-empty curve of the street, the row of white shop fronts on one side, the rise to the hill on the other, the library, the historical society cottage. She wasted some film on streetlights. Oh, she's taking pictures. I take pictures. Cue Depeche Mode from the first album. Speak and Spell, circa 89? 8? 7? 5. Anyhow, it's a good album. So she's taking pictures. She wasted some film on streetlights and litter baskets. Cliche time. But it was only black and white, so what the hell? Because it costs less to develop than color? Any photoshoppers, like, in actual out there that could tell us? I took a photography class when I was a sophomore in high school. I lost it. Okay. A cat trotted down the path from the library, a silver gray cat with a black moon shadow stuck to its paws. Moon shadow. It crossed the street toward the market parking lot. No thanks, we're not keen on cat pics. Wow, before cat ladies, apparently. She set up the tripod on the library lawn and took shots of the shop fronts, using the 50mm lens and making 10, 12, and 14-second exposures. An odd medicinal smell soured the air, coming on the breeze at her back. It almost reminded her of something in her childhood, but fell short. A syrup she'd been given, a toy she'd had, a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. She reloaded by moonlight, gathered the tripod, and backed across the street, scouting the library for a good angle. I mean, okay, so she is in, like, any town USA where, like, you know, streets are safe and everyone's doing their job and their duty, so, you know, things are orderly and in order. But still, it's a little bit odd. When did we say this book was published in 72, was it? Yep, 72, Ira Levin. That's still a little bit odd for a woman, especially one that had a husband and children at home, just to be out, past midnight, or she just after dark when all the shops are closed and stuff. Everyone's at home and she's just out by herself. A wee bit odd. Can't do that nowadays. She reloaded by moonlight, gathered the tripod, and backed across the street, scouting the library for a good angle. She found one and set up. The white clapboard siding was black banded in the overhead moonlight. The windows showed bookshelved walls, lighted faintly from within. He's a good user of the adjective and, extendo adjective. She focused with extra special care and starting at 8 seconds, took each a second longer, exposures up to 18. One of them at least would catch the inside bookshelved walls without overexposing the siding. Oh, what is she gonna find? When she's doing, when it's the dark room montage, whatever. She went to the car for her sweater and looked around as she went back to the camera. The Historical Society cottage? No, it was too tree-shadowed and dull anyway. But the Men's Association house up on the hill had a surprisingly comic look to it. A square old 19th century house, solid and symmetrical, tipsily parasoled by a glistening TV antenna. The 4 tall upstairs windows were vividly alight, their sashes raised. Figures moved inside. She took the 50mm lens out of the camera and was putting in the 135 when headlight beams swept onto the street and grew brighter. She turned and a spotlight blinded her. Boxy and Helena, anyone? Closing her eyes, she tightened the lens. then shielded her eyes and squinted. The car stopped and the spotlights swung away and died to an orange spark. She blinked a few times, still seeing the blinding radiance. Oh, yeah, that sucks. But the moon's out, so she's alright-ish. A police car. It stayed where it was, about 30 feet away from her on the other side of the street. A man's voice spoke softly inside it, spoke and kept speaking. She waited. The car moved forward, coming opposite her, and stopped. The young policeman, with the unpoliceman-like brown mustache, smiled at her and said, "Evening, ma'am." She had seen him several times, once in the stationery store buying packs of colored crepe paper, one each of every color they had. "Hello," she said, smiling. He was alone in the car. He must have been talking on his radio. "About her?" "I'm sorry I hit you with the spot that way," he said. "Is that your car there by the post office?" "Yes," she said. "I didn't park it here because I was..." "That's all right, I'm just checking." He squinted at the camera. "That's a good-looking camera," he said. "What kind is it?" "A Pentax," she said. "Pentax," he said. He looked at the camera and at her. "And you can take pictures at night with it." "Time exposures," she said. "Oh, sure," he said. "How long does it take on a night like this?" "Well, that depends," she said. He wanted to know on what and what kind of film she was using, and whether she was a professional photographer, and how much a Pentax cost, just roughly, and how it stacked up against other cameras. She tried not to grow impatient. She should be glad she lived in a town where a policeman could stop and talk for a few minutes, especially at night when you're just the lady on the street, right? Finally, he smiled and said, "Well, I guess I'd better let you go ahead with it. Good night." "Good night," she said, smiling. He drove off slowly. The silver-gray cat ran through his headlight beams. Bum, bum, bum. She watched the car for a moment and then turned to the camera and checked the lens. Crouching to the viewfinder, she levered into a good framing of the Men's Association house and locked the tripod head. I'm quite good with composition, if I don't say so myself. She focused, sharpening the finder's image of the high, square, tipsy-antennaed house. Those were the days. Two of its upstairs windows were dark now, and another was shade pulled down to darkness. And then the last one. She straightened and looked at the house itself, and turned to the police car's faraway taillights. He had radioed a message about her, and then he had stalled her with his questions while the message was acted on. The shades pulled down. "Oh, come on, girl, you're getting nutty." She looked at the house again. They wouldn't have a radio up there, and what would he have been afraid she'd photograph? An orgy in process? Call girls from the city? Or better yet, from right there in Stepford? Enlarger reveals shocking secret. Seemingly diligent housewives conveniently holding... Oh, so it's like her imagined newsflash. Enlarger reveals shocking secret. Expose tonight at 10. Seemingly diligent housewives conveniently holding still for lengthy time exposures were caught Sunday night disporting at the Men's Association house by photographer Nancy Drew Eberhardt of Fairview Lane. Smiling, she crouched to the viewfinder, bettered her framing and focus, and took 3 shots of the dark windowed house, 10 seconds, 12, and 14. She took shots of the post office and of its bare flagpole silhouetted against moonlit clouds. There ain't many a bare flagpole around these parts these days, eh? She was putting the tripod into the car when the police car came by and slowed. "Hope they all come out," the young policeman called. "Thanks," she called back to him. "I enjoyed talking," to make up for her city-bred suspiciousness. "Good night," the policeman called. Damn it, should we do one more? One more little bit? It's like an extended teaser, right? Or whatever I said. Okay. A senior partner in Walter's firm died of uremic poisoning, and the records of the trusts he had administered were found to be disquietingly inaccurate. Walter had to stay 2 nights and a weekend in the city, and on the nights following, he seldom got home before 11 o'clock. Pete took a fall on the school bus and knocked out his 2 front teeth. Ugh. Joanna's parents paid a short notice 3-day visit on their way to a Caribbean vacation, back when you did retired things when you were retired. They loved the house in Stepford, and Joanna's mother admired Carol Van Sant, So serene and efficient. Take a leaf from her book, Joanna. The dishwasher broke down and the pump, and Pete's 8th birthday came, calling for presents, a party, favors, a cake. Kim got a sore throat and was home for 3 days. Joanna's period was late, but came, thank God. Thank God in the pill. Well, it didn't work twice, she didn't want it to work a third time. I don't know. I know a couple of families that have upwards of 4 plus. One family has 6. The family with 6 has the wife and husband are still married. Mom and dad are still married. They're younger. I think their oldest is like 3rd, 4th grade, something like that. That's quite impressive. But, there's no doubt about what you're going to be doing on any given day, right? I'm having a problem with scheduling at the moment. Never had it, never will. But I think there's hope. Yeah, thank God in the pill. She managed to get in a little tennis, her game improving, but still not as good as Charmaine's. She got the dark room 3/4 set up and made trial enlargements of the black man taxi picture, and developed and printed the ones she had taken in the center, 2 of which looked very good. She took shots of Pete and Kim and Scott Chameleon playing on the jungle gym. She saw Bobby almost every day. They shopped together, and sometimes Bobby brought her 2 younger boys, Adam and Kenny, over after school. One day, Joanna and Bobby and Charmaine got dressed to the nines and had a 2-cocktail lunch at a French restaurant in Eastbridge. I just got an image of, what was her name? Jessica Walters, the mom, the matriarch in Arrested Development, doing one of her shindigs with the, Lucille. The Liza Minnelli character. By the end of October, Walter was getting home for dinner again, and the dead partner's peculations, having been unraveled, made good and patched over. Everything in the house was working, everyone was well. They carved a huge pumpkin for Halloween, just one, and Pete went trick-or-treating as a front toothless Batman, and Kim as Heckle or Jekyll. She was both, she insisted, as is the girl. Joanna gave out 50 bags of candy and had to fall back on fruit and cookies. Next year, she would know better. Yeah, just processed stuff, all pre-wrapped, right? No razor blades in the apple slices or whatever. On the first Saturday in November, they gave a dinner party. Bobby and Dave, Charmaine, and her husband Ed, and from the city, Shep and Sylvia Tackover, and Don Ferralt, one of Walter's partners, and his wife Lucy. The local woman Joanna got to help serve and clean up, was delighted to be working in Stepford for a change. There used to be so much entertaining here, she said. I had a whole round of women that used to fight over me, and now I have to go to Norwood, Eastbridge, and New Sharon, and I hate night driving. She was a plump, quick-moving, white-haired woman named Mary Migliardi. It's that men's association, she said, jabbing toothpicks into shrimp on a platter. Entertaining's gone right out the window since they started up. The men go out and the women stay in. If my old man was alive, he'd have to knock me on the head before I'd let him join. Fucking damn straight. But it's a very old organization, isn't it? Joanna said, tossing salad at arm's length because of her dress. What? Are you kidding? Mary said. It's new. 6 or 7 years, that's all. Before there was the Civic Association and the Elks and the Legion. She toothpicked shrimp and with machine-like rapidity. But they all merged in with it once it got going. Except the Legion. They're still separate. 6 or 7 years, that's all. This isn't all you got for hors d'oeuvres, is it? There's a cheese roll in the refrigerator, Joanna said. Walter came in looking very handsome in his plaid jacket, carrying the ice bucket. We're in luck, he said, going to the refrigerator. There's a good creature feature. Pete doesn't even want to come down. I put the Sony in his room. Long gone are those days, too. Oh. He opened the freezer section and took out a bag of ice cubes. Mary just told me the Men's Association is new, Joanna said. It's not new, Walter said, tearing at the top of the bag. A white dab of tissue clung to his jawbone, pinned by a dot of dried blood. This is the time to talk about our sponsor. I'm just kidding. 6 or 7 years, Mary said. Where we come from, that's old. Joanna said, I thought it went back to the Puritans. What gave you that idea? Walter said, spilling ice cubes into the bucket. She tossed the salad. I don't know, she said, the way it's set up, that old house. That was the Puritan place, Mary said, laying a stretch of plastic over the toothpicked platter. They got it dirt cheap. I can just picture like a spread from one of those like Betty Crocker in full color recipe books, you know, with like the jello molds where the pineapple is like super yellow, orange, brown, or like everything like has this shade of brown. Yeah. Some shrimp, toothpicks, plastic wrap over. Tupperware. You need Tupperware, girls. We won't even get to Mary Kay. There's no time. No time like the Tupperware. Yeah. So, that old house. This old house. That was the Puritan place, Mary said, laying a stretch of plastic over the toothpick platter. They got it dirt cheap, auctioned for taxes, and no one else bid. Mysterious death of law partner guy? The party was a disaster. Lucy Ferralt was allergic to something and never stopped sneezing. Could it have been the shrimp? Sylvia was preoccupied. Bobby, whom Joanna had counted on as a conversational star, had laryngitis. Oh, shit. Charmaine was Miss Vamp, provocative and come-hithery in floor-length white silk cut clear to her navel. What was this, like some 1920s pre-code film or what? Dave and Shep were provoked and went thither. Walter, damn him, talked law in the corner with Don Ferralt. Oh, he wasn't chasing the lady? The lady in white. Ed Wimpress, big, fleshy, well-tailored stewed, talked television, clamping Joanna's arm and explaining in slow, careful words why cassettes were going to change everything. You know why? Because he was drunk and enunciating. At the dinner table, Sylvia got unpreoccupied and tore into suburban communities that enriched themselves with tax-yielding light industry while fortressing themselves with 2- and 4-acre zoning. Ed Wimpress knocked his wine over. Joanna tried to get light conversation going, and Bobby pitched in valiantly, gasping an explanation of where the laryngitis had come from. She was doing tape recordings for a friend of Dave's who think he's a bleeding Henry Higgins, he does. Who's Henry Higgins? Who's John Galt? But seriously, who's Henry Higgins? And I guess he's British. But Charmaine, who knew the man had taped for him herself, cut her short with, "Never make fun of what a Capricorn's doing. They produce." And went into an around-the-table sign analysis that demanded everyone's attention. At least they weren't talking about being on the reg. The roast was overdone, and Walter had a bad time slicing it. That's a hard-to-slice roast right there. The souffle rose, but not quite as much as it should have, as Mary remarked while serving it. Thank you, Mary. Didn't need to add insult to injury. Lucy Ferralt sneezed. "Never again," Joanna said as she switched the outside lights off. and Walter, yawning, said, "Soon enough for me." "Listen, you," she said. "How could you stand there talking to Don while 3 women are sitting like stones on the sofa?" Okay, this is a little mini. Sylvia called to apologize. She had been passed up for a promotion she damn well knew she deserved. And Charmaine called to say that they'd had a great time and to postpone a tentative Tuesday tennis date. "Ed's got a bee in his bonnet," she said. "He's taking a few days off. We're putting Meryl with the DaCostas. You don't know them, lucky you. And he and I are going to rediscover each other. That means he chases me around the bed, and my period's not till next week. God damn it." Thank God in the pill. "Why not let him catch you?" Joanna said. "Oh God," Charmaine said. "Look, I just don't enjoy having a big cock shoved into me, that's all. Never have and never will. And I'm not a les either, because I tried it and that's no big deal. I'm just not interested in sex. I don't think any woman is really, not even Pisces women. Are you?" "Well, I'm not a nympho," Joanna said, "but I'm interested in it. Sure I am." "Really? Or do you just feel you're supposed to be? Or you do... okay, wait a second. She's not an nympho, but she's interested in it. Sure I am." "Really? Or do you just feel you're supposed to be?" "Really." "Well, to each his own," Charmaine said. Or her own. Well, they weren't doing that yet. Or written by a man. Just kidding. Hypersensitive these days. May you live in interesting times. Mike Gillis. Well, he didn't coin it, but that's where I heard it. Well, to each his own, Charmaine said. Let's make it Thursday, all right? He's got a conference he can't get out of, thank God. Okay, Thursday, unless something comes up. Don't let anything. It's getting cold. We'll wear sweaters. Huh? Yeah, 20 minutes, not bad. All right. So, where are we on? That was, next we'll start, she went to a PTA meeting on page 83. Sorry it's been so while. Sorry it's been so long. Quite a while. And, thank you for your, encouragement, those who gave it. And, certainly got the ones coming through the ether. So until soon, ciao.